I just want to be clear that this is kind of a clickbaity thumbnail and YouTube video title because I actually don't hate all of stats. And partly what I'm going to do in this video is defend stats. But what I will be complaining about very hard in this video is the mandated stats that is part of the A-level maths curriculum here in the UK set by the Department of Education. And I also want to be very clear, I'm not criticizing Pearson Excel or AQA or any of the other great exam boards that do fantastic work. It's entirely the fault of the Department for Education that they have set a curriculum that involves the things that I'm about to complain about. And yeah, I just wanted to make that very clear. I've got a bullet point list of things that I'm going to go through, all of the things that I hate and all the things that need fixing, and hopefully you'll enjoy this ride. Thing one that I hate is just the influx of incredibly boring GCSE maths that somehow has made its way into your A level. If you're doing an A level maths, you must have been okay at GCSE. Can we not just move on from it? Why are we answering questions about histograms? Why are we answering questions about stratified sampling? Why are we doing probability tree diagrams? This is what, grade 6, grade 7 GCSE? Barely higher level? And yet it's in A level maths. Box plots. You're giving me box plots in my A-level maths qualification. Stem and leaf. Why is this here? And don't tell me, oh, it's because, look, you didn't have to do this at GCSE, 1.5 times interquartile. Yeah, we can all time stuff by 1.5, thanks. Cool. Why is this here? It's made even worse. So the reason that I used to think all of this was here was because I didn't know what was in further stats because I never did further stats. So I always used to think, oh, well, this is here because when you do further stats, it's kind of necessary that this is all really boring because all that really boring stuff is the stepping stone required to learn further stats. Absolutely not true. In the past month or two, I've done all the further stats. I've learned it all. I've done all the past papers, which will be going up on YouTube pretty soon if they're not already. None of it, none of it follows on from any of this. They wrote an absolute garbage curriculum for no reason. It doesn't help you. And even worse, there's actually good stuff in further stats that they could have used and chose not to. For example, here's a further stats one exam from Pearson Excel. We're doing differentiation in our discrete random variables question. Here's some really lovely differentiation with some rules that about expected values and variances according to that differentiation. You know, this is good. This is interesting. It's good maths that people might enjoy doing. It's very akin to how in mechanics there's the questions about variable acceleration in velocity, displacement, and acceleration questions where you differentiate to go down to velocity from acceleration and so on. And and everyone enjoys that. Everyone agrees that those are banging questions because you get to do some real maths that you apply to your fringe type of maths, which is exactly what's going on here. And yet they chose not to use it in exchange for using this instead. And likewise, FS2, here's some integration. Who would have thought you could do integration in your stats? But you can. It's just hidden away in the bounds of further stats that no one ever does. And it's really depressing and annoying that this is here and no one does it. People might actually enjoy it if people might actually enjoy stats if this was in it, but it's not. Even more than that, like people might just think, oh, he's just cherry picking because he doesn't really enjoy stats, and he's just choosing the stats questions that are just regular maths based. And of course I am. But also, look at this question here, right? I'll give you a second to read it if you want. So these are the heart rates of some people before they did an exercise program, and here are the heart rates afterwards. And the premise of this question is, does the exercise program work, right? Or is the variances in these heart rates just random chance? Now, hopefully, most of us can agree that that's quite an interesting premise for a question. And at the very least, if it's not interesting, if you don't think it's interesting, at the very least, you can see how this will be quite a worthwhile question to be able to ask and answer, for when you're actually creating exercise programs and having to test them. This is quite a worthwhile question to know how to do the answer to. And yet again, this isn't tested in your stats course. It's tested in further stats because instead they want to ask stuff like this, right? And that really annoys me. It just really annoys me. It's such a waste of time. You know, that annoys me. Reason four, it doesn't help other subjects. And really, there's only one thing going on here, which is in geography. and in biology, those are the two subjects that I know. A thing called Spearman's rank is used. And Spearman's rank is not that hard. It's not hard for a mathematician. But these other subjects, you just have to teach it. And wouldn't it be really great if that really not that hard piece of maths was in, say, your mandated A-level stats course, where you could learn that, and therefore you could take it into your other subjects, and you could do it there without having to learn from a non-subject specialist, from a biology teacher, that thing. Except you don't do that because Spearman's rank is hidden away in further stats, in a course that nobody ever takes. My YouTube statistics tell me that nobody takes it. And in exchange, again, I keep having to go back to it, but in exchange, you instead learn about stem and leaf diagrams. Why? Like, why? Why is this a thing? Surely we could agree. No, apparently we can't, so I'll just move on. I mean, it's such a waste of time. Number five, AS stats, year one stats in particular, is tragic. Here's a brief rundown of the things that you learn in year one stats. Number one, completely pointless. Number two, I mean, the first half of this is primary school mean, median, range, and mode. And then the second half is some formulas for standard deviation that my year sevens could use because they can substitute. Absolute waste of time. Then you start talking about this, which I made an entire bullet point on. The first point I made, if you remember correctly, box plots, stem and leaves, histograms, complete waste of time. Then you do this. Now, Spearman's rank is correlation, but again, you don't learn that. All you do is you look at some charts and you say whether it's positive or negative. As far as I can figure out, that's basically all you do in this chapter. It's incredible. Absolutely amazing. You don't learn how to do PMCC properly either. That's in further stats as well, even though it's not that hard and used to be in S1. So why it's not in there anymore? It is actually still in there. You could still be asked it, but your calculator just has a button for it. You don't actually learn how to do it properly. So this is just GCSE, as I've already said. This is in red because it's so far the only worthwhile thing that's come up here, the only actual piece of stats that might be of any benefit to anyone who wants to be a statistician. And then you get to hypothesis testing. And this is amazing because hypothesis tests are like the bread and butter of A level, of like proper stats work. Like it's the thing you do over and over again. That heart rate question, this is just a hypothesis test, right? And you just do some hypothesis tests with a particular table that you learn about. The problem is, because you've wasted your entire year doing absolute garbage, absolute waste of time nonsense, you get to this really important thing and you don't have anything to test because you haven't learned any actual stats. Except for you can do a binomial test, which is presumably why it comes here, but that's the only thing. And that's it. That's the entire year, right? It's such nonsense. What this is like, putting hypothesis tests at the end of this, and bear with me, I used to bake bread for a living. And as part of that job, I worked in a bakery. It was a cookery school actually, and I taught members of the public from 9 till 4, a 4 day course on how to make bread. And what this is essentially doing, this is as if I taught that course where we just spent 4 hours talking about the history of heritage wheat growing, and then at the very end, I showed them how to knead a dough. Now, kneading a dough is really important. Like it's incredibly important to bread makers. But if you haven't discussed any of the ingredients of bread and you haven't learned how to mix a dough, just jumping to the kneading after a load of absolute nonsense is completely pointless. And that's what this chapter is. I'll give you another story for what I think is going on here. I started at a new school in September. So I was leaving. I knew I was leaving my old school towards the end of last year, obviously. And year 11s were taking their exams, and we were asked as teachers to write a message of encouragement for the year 11s that they were taking their exams. And because I would do just about anything for a laugh, and because I genuinely wanted to test whether anyone read any of the messages that were going onto that spreadsheet for the kids to read, I wrote a message that actually it kind of made sense if you read it for a second. But if you read the first letter of every word, it said something to the effect, and I don't know exactly because I don't remember, but it says something to the effect of, I am a god, you're going to fail your GCSEs. And of course, it just made it into the spreadsheet, and I was never caught up on it. And I think that's what happened here. Like there was a team of people at the DFE who were asked to write the AS stats curriculum, and they came up with this as a joke. They came up with this. They sent it to their supervisor, and they were like, "Oh, it'll be so funny when Dave comes down here and tells us what the hell we were doing, and to redo this tomorrow because it's such rubbish." And that just never happened. It just went through. And for 5 or 6 years now, this is what we've just been teaching because no one ever checked and no one ever picked them up on their joke. Genuinely, quite genuinely, that's what I think happened here. That's my best hypothesis that I have for what's going on here. One more thing about this. If you made this comment on the previous video that I made, which is kind of the reason that I'm making this video, I completely disagree with this comment here, right? I think there are, and I know there are plenty of very good mathematicians who do stats and do some very good stats. However, the reason people make comments like this is because this is their introduction to A-level stats or to stats in general. And of course, if this is your introduction to what a thing is, then that's what you think that thing is. That's what you think this is what stats is. And if this is what you think stats is, of course you think it's a complete waste of time because it is, right? But I've detailed earlier in this video, haven't I, that there's actually some good stats in the world, right? And there are some good mathematicians doing that stats. But as long as we keep teaching you this, we are never going to encourage anyone into the world of stats, ever, because we are giving them this absolute garbage, right? So I disagree with this comment, but I fully understand why someone would make it, right? And that's kind of the entire point that I'm trying to make in this video. I've saved the best point for last. I've saved the worst thing about A-level stats for last. The worst thing, the large data sets. Jesus Christ, what is going on here? I'm just going to bullet point some things that are genuinely worth marks in A-level maths exams and are therefore implied to be worthwhile knowledge for our young mathematicians to have. The fact that, however you pronounce this place, is a more northerly town than Camborne. The fact that cloud cover is measured in octas. And the fact, I've just taken 3 examples here, the fact that data is only sampled from May to October, which leads to this baller question of here are 6 months, here are the average temperatures, which month is B? And if you haven't looked at the large data set, because why on earth would you? You say, oh, it's the coldest month, it must be like February. But because it's only from May to October, it must be May or October, you know? Incredible question, complete waste of time. Like, imagine you were 1 mark off an A in A-level maths. And imagine your best friend got an A, scraped an A, they were 1 mark above you, they were on the boundary for an A, and the only thing that you did different in your 2 exams were the fact that that person knew that cloud cover was octas and you didn't. And that's the thing that made them get an A and you didn't. That's what we're valuing here by asking questions like this. What on earth is the point? And apologies to Pearson Excel because these examples are from your large data set. In interest of balance, AQA's large data set is just as pointless and just as garbage, but I didn't want to bring both of them in front of me in case I just died. So I only put one on my screen and took examples from that one. So apologies to you guys there. But this is an absolute. You know how when we, as mathematicians and people who are doing A-level maths, sometimes we like to have a sense of superiority, don't we? About what we're doing, because like we're doing A-level maths, you know, maths. It's a proper subject. Like the other sciences also have that sense of superiority. Whereas, you know, you look down on people who are doing like tech and other stuff. I think I think we lose. We have no right to be that arrogant about our subject, given that this is some of the stuff in it. And it's not just the large data set. I could have made this point back about stem and leaf diagrams, couldn't I? Like the fact that that kind of thing is worth marks in our A level gives us no credibility to say that our A level is harder or more worthwhile than anyone else's to do. Until we remove this absolute garbage, until we purge ourselves of this nonsense and start only asking proper maths questions, can we then claim that our subject and our A level is on a higher level than all the others? But until that day, we need to take off our masks and we need to admit that at the very least, a significant part of our A level is complete garbage. And we just need to be upfront about that. We need to omit it and we need to fix it, hopefully quite soon. Thanks for watching.